And welcome everybody, Don Giannetti, lighting-essentials.com and project52prosystem.com. And today we're going to talk about a very highly influential photographer from the fashion industry, but he influenced photographers across nearly every genre. He first came on my radar when a friend of mine called from New York and said, "Hey, I just modeled for this guy. He's up and coming. He's really weird. You're going to like his work." And she said his name is Guy Bourdin. I found out later his name is Guy Bourdin. He's a French photographer, and he was iconoclastic as hell. He did his own thing. He didn't follow layouts. No one came to him and said, "Here's the sketch of what you wanted to do." If you shot with Guy Bourdin, he did everything, art direction, the whole bit. He chose his models, he chose the location, he chose the shot, and there you go. He just kind of burst on the scene, I guess, in a way, in that his work for fashion magazines just started to become ubiquitous. It was really something to see. One of the number one things that he was known for in the day was a line of shoes. And that client was Charles Jourdan Shoes. Guy shot a lot of fashion, a lot of portraits, and did a lot of work. He studied, I guess you would say, studied under Ouija, a very unique and strange photographer from New York. And this is Guy's, I guess, destiny is to make these amazing photographs. Guy died in 1991, so he hasn't been with us for a long time. All these pictures are obviously taken on film, most of them taken on 35 millimeter film. So this shot with the two girls running, what a tableau, right? Look at the guy's got the gun out, the other guy's running up the stairs. We've got two different uniforms, but we have the two girls running around the corner. Look at the moment, the gesture here. This young lady, really, look at how far apart her legs are. She's really running. She's in the middle of a run. Look at the faces. Look at this face turned back towards us like that. Is that not amazing? Just amazing. I had a couple of model friends who worked with Guy Bourdin, and they said he was driven. He was, just absolutely knew what he didn't want and wanted to get what he saw in his head, and they would do it again and again and again and again. And I don't know how many times this young lady ran around the corner, but I'll bet you more times than you can imagine, knowing how Guy shot. It's I guess one of those shots that you just look at and you go, wow, we've got this background going here and light to dark, the girls. It's just, I don't know. This is the kind of perfection that I love in photography. It really is. This is another one of his more famous shots, again, for Charles Jourdan Shoes. The shoes are a tiny part of it. This ran as a double truck, a 2-page spread. And I think I even have one somewhere. I saved a lot of these things from back in my youth. But it was just one of those shots where you kind of look at it and go, oh my God, it's so perfect. We get this line up here, which is part of this sort of horizontal structure, and then the girl coming up with this S, this serpentine thing. The legs. Notice the shadows. You'll see this in a lot of Bourdin shots, is he'll create a very powerful ambient light, lots of lighting, to bring the exposure, all flat and even, and then he'll pop just a little open flash somewhere to get this tiny little shadow that we see. And in this one, it's kind of interesting. We've got the boom, boom, boom highlight there. One of the things that Bourdin will do is to use 3 small umbrellas, 24-inch umbrellas, at a distance, and so we end up with 1, 2, 3 shadows over here. He got me doing it. I mean, I was doing, I've mentioned in a previous video, I was doing like 4 24-inch umbrellas all around the camera. I was building them tall, 4 24s, tall. Just amazing photography. Sometimes he didn't even use a model. He would scout locations just rigorously, just looking for the right place. And then, here he's taking his flashes outside. Oh my gosh, pre-1991. Flashes outside. Who would have thunk it? And did a beautiful job with this thing. It's just incredible. Those are the shoes just pop out of the green. And then these mysterious houses. I guess those are beach houses in, Nantucket or Long Island or somewhere. Pretty interesting. Great backgrounds. Great locations. This particular location's in front of the art museum in Los Angeles, and I don't know if they're still there, but these dolphins were plaster. He didn't know it. He thought they were concrete, and he had the model climb up on the plaster dolphins, and of course security went kind of nuts, and she carefully climbed back down, but it's amazing that the dolphin didn't break under her weight, because they were just plaster, not concrete. Great shot. Amazing how he did everything so perfectly. The red, the blue, and the black and white dolphins. She just stands out so well from the background. Great shot and a great story to go with it for sure. Another one of those fabulous locations would be this one. And I don't know where this is. I believe it's somewhere in New York City Library or something. But again, a couple of mannequin legs and the shoes. All this heavy, heavy brickwork around it. And again, strobe outside. This is in the 80s, strobe outside. We would have to, back in the 80s, take a Honda generator or some way, take a Honda generator and some Balcars outside. There were no battery-powered strobes, not of any power anyway. Maybe using a Norman 200B or a 400B here. It was late 80s. Those were possible, but definitely an interesting way to shoot the fashion. Is this a marvelous shot? You're just pulled into it. You don't know why, Simple shot, and again, you can see that great, beautiful ambient light that's everywhere, lighting up the dress, lighting up her face and everything, and then just that one little kicker, putting the shadow here, putting the shadow there, little kicker from here and from there. Sometimes he'd use small umbrellas, sometimes he'd use bare bulbs, but just little kickers to give dimension to it. It's really fun. I think you'll like this shot as well. Notice the three almost menacing shadows here. We don't know what the shadows are about. We don't know what the shot's about. It's an empty pier or bridge or something. It's literally empty. It's very haunting feeling. One lone bird in the sky, the model, and the strobe light is coming from behind what's ever making the shadows here. Coming from behind the if these are people, just casting the shadow, and you'll see the shadow back up on the wall. It's this use of shadow in his work, this use of hard shadow, that really set him off in the day. The only time you would see a lot of hard shadow back in those days was pure natural light. Bourdin would take his own lights and create his own shadows. It's pretty fascinating. Another example of texture, color, and just something, different. Now, I'm sure this wasn't for the shoe company, but, knowing the way the guy shot, yeah, it could be. I don't think it was. I think it was a makeup shot. Here's another Journal ad that was, created a lot of stir. We don't know what's happening with the young lady up here. We don't know why her shoes are down here. It's an empty pool. He used this empty pool for a couple of different shots, I think on the same shoot, but I'm not really sure. I've seen this pool in several of his photographs, and just remarkable, isn't it? It just captures you, and you just look at it and go, wow. But we don't know what's going on, and the inclusion of this one feature there really makes a big difference. If you can take it out in your mind's eye and just have the feet here, it doesn't work. We need that 1, 2, 3 thing happening here. And of course the slanted pool gives it another little tinge of weirdness. Great double portrait, wide angle lens, two girls walking down here, two girls up here. Appears they're in the same dresses, if you can see that. Same hats, etc. I don't think this is double exposure. I really don't. I think it's, two sets of models. But beautiful example of, I believe this is early on in his career. He was shooting a lot of black and white. After he left Ouija, a lot of black and white. And then moved to color. And I think once he got to color, he rarely moved back, except when he really, really wanted to say something in black and white. Another perfect 80s fashion, the seam up the back, the red leather against the blue and the gray. All we see are the shoes. All we see here are the shoes. No matter how you look at this picture, you end up at the shoes, That's the way I love his expressions that he would get from the models. He'd have them screaming. He'd have them shouting. He'd have them fake crying. He just wanted something more than the empty, vacuous model look. He just needed to get something more from his shots. I love that she's laughing. I used to try to get the models to laugh as much as possible. I wanted to get that real look of laughter. I always wanted to get them moving. And by the way, in these shots, these girls are rarely still. They're moving. They're moving up and down. They're twisting. They're bringing their face to him. They're taking it away. They're throwing it back. Everything to keep moving. So it was a very physical shoot for the models. Very physical. And don't you just love this? She's wearing a pair of shoes here. And she's got a pair of shoes down here. We don't know what this is. I don't know what that is. I don't think that's a bed. It's some sort of foam or something. And then we get her all the way around in the mirror. Love this shot. A couple of Charles Jourdan shoes and a very, she's just constricted. She's pulling everything in. Her arms are just twisted in front of her, pulling herself in to get this hourglass kind of look here. Perfect symmetry here. And look at the hair. Isn't that cool? We just have this perfect triangle, the symmetry that's going on with the shape of the body. It's really extraordinary. Here's that pool again. Use it for a couple of things. Look at her expression coming up from under her eyes. I can tell you her head was back here, it was up here, it was over here, it was down here. It's how people, photographers back in those days shot. It would just be constant motion, and we would look at shot after shot after shot on contact sheets to get exactly what we wanted. This one, maybe not so much, but this one for sure. Isn't that great? Where the shadow line cuts right through her body there. Get that natural light back on her hair. It's really, really cool. So she's here. Now there's either a giant reflector or a strobe over here lighting her up. You can see she's lit up here. You can see the shadow from the light on this leg shadowing the other leg. You can see the shadow up here. So we've got sun coming down from the top, and then we've got something coming from over here. Could be a big silver reflector. Those were very popular. I went through a number of those. Then gold reflectors. Guy would use gold reflectors. I don't have any examples in here of the gold reflectors, but he used them. I may have. Actually, the last picture may have some. This one, we got the Jourdan shoes. We got the sunglasses. We have her in a towel with her swimsuit hanging up here, and then she's hanging her head back into the shadow. Right off the bat, this is a very weird pose, right? How do you manipulate your models to get into poses like that? That's part of the genius of someone like Guy Bourdin and Peter Lindbergh, Patrick Marchelier, really working with the girls to get them to have this sort of totally relaxed, unposed pose. Just a very cool shot. This shot was something that I attempted to do so often after I'd seen it. I loved shooting through one body to another body, and I tried to do a lot of that. This is sunlight and reflector, big giant either silver reflector or, like I say, a 200B Norman 200B or something equivalent over here lighting it up, but it's definitely lit outside. And in the days of fashion back in the 80s, that was very unusual. You know, we had Vivitar 283s, and you know, these big, what they used to call potato masher strobes, but they weren't as powerful as many times people needed. Now he's using a wide angle lens here, so this young lady is closer physically to the camera than she looks. You can see the distortion here, pulling down here, and you know, looking up at the clouds. But it's a really, really great shot, and I just think the world of Guy Bourdin. I think he's you know, just incredible. One very last shot here. I used to, when I'd work with more than one models, I always used to get them to fight with each other. It was a faux fight, you know, jumping in the air like karate, or, you know, just jumping and screaming and yelling at each other. And I guess I got that from Guy Bourdin, because he had so many of these images. We don't know what's happening with these two ladies here. We don't have a clue. Maybe she's running to get a squirrel off her back. I don't know. Maybe they're arguing. I don't know. But there's something really, really happening here. And can you imagine that this, back in the 80s, was a shoe ad? Yep, a shoe ad. Anyway, Guy Bourdin, I hope you enjoy his work as much as I do. I hope you're intrigued and maybe a little bit inspired by the work. I love the fact that she's turning away there. Oh, love it. Great photographer, sorely missed, and someone I think, you know, really that we need more of these days. I used to love to look at fashion magazines. I rarely do it anymore because it just seems to be so boring. Then fashion photographers are interchangeable practically. Everybody looks the same. For the most part, there's still some great, you know, individuals, but there's just so much similarity. And then you get to something like Bourdin, and you realize, hey, there's more that we can do. All right, thanks everybody. If you like what I'm doing, hit the like button. I appreciate that. And we'll see you next time.